My name is Jacob Tveraabak. I'm the CEO of StrongPoint. I'm asking the question, will e-commerce in groceries ever be profitable? And I'll do my best to answer it today as well. Before we get started, or actually getting started, I wanted to tell a story. A story about Arnold the ant. Arnold was as any ant. He was working tremendously with his anthill, together with all his other ant friends. Picking up pine needle by pine needle and putting it into a big anthill. He had only one problem in life, and that was that there was this big animal, an elephant, passing by every now and then. The big elephant was clumsy, so he stepped into the anthill, partially destroying that from time to time. And the ants thought, well, we have to do something about this. So one day they decided to go to attack. And when the elephant came one morning, they all screamed to each other, "Attack!" And they attacked the elephant. They jumped up on his back. But needless to say, the elephant was big. He shrugged off the ants. They fell to the ground, all except one. That was, of course, Arnold, the ant. He clinged onto the back, and all the other ants realized that he's our only hope. So they screamed up to Arnold, "Arnold! Choke him! Strangle him!" And obviously, well, that was a bit of an unfair game. And, well, you probably come to realize by now that, the ants symbolizing, or first of all, the elephants symbolizing many of the companies you are representing here, the big grocery retail chains. And the ants being the pure players, or even the e-commerce division within your company. So will the ants ever choke the elephant? I think, I sympathize with both the ant and the elephants. Before joining StrongPoint, I have one life in the old traditional grocery retailer chains. For my sake, it was for Rema 1000, the biggest grocery retail brand in Norway. But I've also been on the other side. I've been part of the board of Profitability, the largest pure player in grocery retail. And in cars and mobility, I was leading Bavaria, one of the largest BMW dealership groups in the Nordics. But I've also been an ant, founding a company called Nabobil.no, a peer-to-peer car-sharing company that was sold off to a Silicon Valley-based company with SoftBank funding. So I've been on both sides. Now I have the opportunity of being with StrongPoint. We, as StrongPoint, we benefit from both the growth of e-commerce and the many questions that players ask themselves, how can we make this work and how can we make it profitable? And on the other hand, we have obviously a lot of pressure on the margins in the stores. This is the double opportunity for StrongPoint. But back to the ant and the elephant. I see, when I speak with executives, I see a lot of elephants and their reactions to the ants. Some simply ignore them. Some trying to make friends with them. Some even marry them. And I'm not sure what I think about a marriage between an elephant and an ant. I think the answer, though, from the elephant to the question will be, well, size matters. And to some extent, they're right. If you compare the EBIT margins of the brick and mortars, the elephants, that's typically in the 3 or 4% range. Whereas if you move to the pure players, or even the grocery online parts of a larger grocery retail chain, they're massively negative in terms of the short-term EBIT. So they're right in a way. Size does matter. But it's also typically brick and mortars versus online pure players. So, what can we do with this? Well, I think for the elephants, there are two concerns. One, the pure players, they're not really measuring their success on the short-term EBIT. They have different success metrics. And they have very deep pockets from venture capitalist companies and private equity companies. On the other hand, you have customers. They tend to like shopping from the sofa, also groceries. They like the convenience of shopping from your sofa, getting the deliveries to your doorstep or to a pick and collect place. So what should we do as elephants? Well, to give the short answer to the question I initially posed, will it ever become profitable? The simple answer is yes. And it's already happened. Can I see some hands in the air if you ever heard about EuroShop? EuroShop in Switzerland. So 1 hand, 2, 3. EuroShop in Switzerland was eventually acquired by Migros, but they started in the late 90s, continuously developed their business model, and one of the success criteria they had was, well, they had a reasonable number of SKUs, a reasonably priced items, and yes, this is Switzerland, so you had one central fulfillment center, and you did all the manual picking there, and you sent it out with a Swiss post. And yes, it's Switzerland, so they deliver every morning. Not very flexible, but it made it work. So the short answer is yes, it's possible. The little bit longer answer is, if we really want to scale it, is it depends. And it depends on 3 things. And I'll give you my 2 cents on these 3 things. 1 being the value proposition for the customers. 2 being the commercial considerations. And 3 being the operational choices that you need to take. So to the first one, the value proposition, customer value proposition. When you go shopping online for groceries, you want it to be easy, you want it to be fast. The benchmark has essentially been set by Amazon. 1-click purchase. That's how easy it needs to be. We're not really looking for that authentic experience that you have in a bazaar, Turkish market, where you can try new things, maybe even haggle on price. You want it to be simple, you want it to be easy. So for God's sake, I've come across very many different websites and mobile apps, and they look like Turkish bazaars. They're not supposed to be like Turkish bazaars. Part of the customer experience is, of course, also having the right number of SKUs at the right prices with the right delivery options. But it's also about making sure that the delivery options and the order process is as easy as possible. So make it easy. Number 2. I don't know how many recognize themselves in this picture. But the truth of the matter is that you're dealing with a monetizable pain. Monetizable pain. It's possible to monetize on it. And there's, I observe a lot of discussions about, well, what should the price levels be versus what should the delivery fees be. And there's lots of attention on the delivery fees. I'm going to try to generalize, but I think just because there is so much focus on delivery fees, set them low or even to none. Set them low or even to none. And yes, you can have all kinds of rules for you need to purchase for X number of euros. But the truth of the matter is that the typical online basket is 3 to 5 times larger than the brick and mortar basket. So what does it mean if you set this to 0? Well, it means you need to be smart in pricing the other items that you have. And you have a fantastic opportunity for that, both generally, but also because when you want to do bulk purchase items, detergents, toilet paper, etc., those are typically items with very high or good margins. And then also, if we believe that data is the new gold, I mean, this is a candy store for marketeers. You're basically getting all the data you need. All the data you need to make the customer experience better and to pursue or push the products that provide you with the right sort of commercial incentives. So that was number 2. This is a monetizable pain, and it's possible to monetize. Number 3, in terms of operations, the answer is a bit more, it depends again. Because essentially what you're looking at is how do you do picking most efficiently and how do you do delivery most efficiently. And there are a number of other parameters, using your own personnel versus third-party personnel, passive, active cooling, but to make it simple, you basically can do picking in store, or you can do it in dark store. You can do picking manually or with automated micro-fulfillment centers. And in dark stores, manually or with automated solutions, typically with Ocado-like central fulfillment centers. And in terms of delivery, of course, you have the home deliveries, you have the pickup in store and pickup elsewhere, as you can do with a mobile click and collect solution. So to illustrate this a little bit, these are basically the options you have. And then you ask yourself, well, what is the right option? It's very easy to think that, well, why don't we just put in some automation and robotics and things will solve itself? But the answer is not that simple. So before I get to the answer, I want to take time to just put out one characteristic of grocery retail, which is different than other types of retail. And that is when you do shopping online, and you have 3 to 5 times larger basket sizes, you tend to shop for the week. And yes, this differs depending on what country you're looking at, but there's one thing that's common for all countries I've seen at least, and that's Monday is the peak day. So if you compare the percentage of orders going through or being ordered, typically next day, some 2 and 3 days in advance, but typically one day next day, this is the picture you're looking at. So you can imagine if you're trying to fully automate your picking solution, you're not just looking at the 100% on Monday because you're growing fast. So you're building steel and metal for something a lot higher than the Monday peak, which means you're essentially all the time over-investing. The unit cost that you were promised on your Excel sheet is all of a sudden 3, 4, 5 times bigger than it used to be, or should be. So just bear this in mind. Because when you want to do the right operational choices, you really need to take many considerations. The 2 most important considerations I like to pull out here are, on the one hand side, how mature are you in the market? There's no point in setting up a fully automated central fulfillment center if there's no demand. So typically you start doing picking in store manually. And you do that in a dark store, and then you can move to automated solutions. However, the answer also depends on, well, the appropriate answer also depends on, well, what is the market that you're serving? Are you serving a city area, an urban area, or a rural area? Because it's going to take very, very, very many years, if ever, that you can actually get the density of drop density that you want in a rural area. So I'm sorry, but the answer is a bit, it depends. It depends on these characteristics at least. So, given this, what should the elephants do? Should they escape from the herd and do like elephants have done in the past, go out to die? No, of course not. So I'm going to give you my 2 cents on summarizing what are the 5 things you as elephants should do. So number 1, you need to recognize that there is a customer demand out there and that there are ants. And those ants, they're not going to run out of money. Those venture capitalists are not stupid. They're going to get money for a long time. So stop whining about them destroying the market. They're not. They're benefiting and taking advantage of the customer demand out there. Number 2, act now. Versus the digital natives, you don't have that many advantages. But you have 2. You have a brand and you have a store network. And you can draw parallels to other industries when it comes to store networks or networks in general. Because it's very tempting to start rationalizing your store network if demand goes down. And I'm going to use one example from a Norwegian company called Schibsted Distribution. Well, Schibsted is a pretty big European company. But Schibsted Distribution, they deliver printed newspapers on your doorstep every morning. And it doesn't take a scientist to understand that that's going down, that's declining. It's very, very tempting to start rationalizing that network. Not deliver every morning, maybe every second morning, maybe away from the house. But Schibsted Distribution did something. They said, well, okay, before we start rationalizing the network, is there anything we can use this network for? We're going to every doorstep, every morning, delivering newspapers. Of course you can deliver parcels. They're delivering parcels now through very many different brands, being hugely successful in that. So think about that before you start rationalizing your stores. Number 3, make it easy and monetize on the opportunity. It is a monetizable opportunity. It is a monetizable opportunity. And number 4, there is not one silver bullet. It would be very easy for us, and we as humans tend to want to go to one solution. Let's just automate everything, it's fixed. Well, it will not, as shown. Depends on the maturity and the markets you want to serve. And lastly, look for allies. Don't try to do everything from scratch yourself. You don't have to, and you can't be world champion at everything you do. So with that, I'd like to thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Jacob.